Om. Om. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunatu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvina Aditamastu Mavidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, may the Divine Being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the Divine Being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto us and to the Divine Being's beloved children everywhere. This is our prayer. So good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Wednesday evening reading and discussion of Bhagavad Gita. We're on chapter 14, the Gunas. Our reader is Swayam Prabha. And before we begin, is there anything that you would like to discuss? Anything that you would like to bring up, either from some past gathering of this or any other class? Anything at all that you would like to express your opinion on, or raise a concern or a question? Anything at all? All right, dears. So, Swayam, please just let us know where we are in the book and proceed.
Okay. Namaste and happy Janmashtami to everybody. It's such an auspicious day to be doing this together. It's Lord Krishna's birthday.
Yes.
Last week I was not here, but Haima kindly let me know where you all had stopped. And so I will begin from there. In the book, my book, it's page 136, and it is 1, 2, 3, the fourth para, beginning with of Sattva. She informed me that that's where I'm to begin today. So shall I go ahead and start?
Please, dear, just go right ahead.
Okay. Of Sattva, knowledge is born. Of Rajas, greed. Tamas brings forth bewilderment, delusion, darkness. Abiding in Sattva, man goes to higher realms. Remaining in Rajas, in this world he remains. Sunk in Tamas, his lowest nature, he sinks to the underworld. Let the wise man know these gunas alone as the doers of every action. Let him learn to know that which is beyond them also. Thus he will reach my oneness.
So let's stop there. Note that Sri Krishna says, without qualification, the gunas are the doers of everything. Everything that we can know, everything that we can experience is the result of the actions of the gunas. If we do spiritual practices, we ultimately go beyond them to the turiya, the fourth. The gunas are three, and it is said in the breaker of this world's chain of Sri Ramakrishna, thou art above the gunas three. That is to say, he abides in this fourth state, this state of samadhi. So this is our aspiration, to go beyond the gunas. But as long as we are playing our role as the divine being being created by the gunas, mother's play, her lila, her maya, then it is up to us to do the very best we can. Because, as we'll find when we read the book Divine Grace by Swami Ranganathananda, that to be fully human is to be fully divine. So before I stray too far from what Swayam just read, is there any comment or question or concern from any one of you?
Brother Shankara?
Yes, dear.
So maybe there was some discussion last week around this, but I just happened to glance at the previous paragraph, and I read this. He who dies in Rajas will be reborn among those whose bondage is action. He who dies in Tamas will return to the womb of the dullard. So how do they then break out of that cycle? If somebody is Rajasic and is born again in Rajasic circumstances or Tamas and how will they break out of that cycle?
Well, we don't know, dear. We don't know how any individual. We can look to our own lives and get some sense of how we broke out of it. But it's clear that we are still very involved with the world of action of Rajas. Otherwise, we would not have been reborn. So we are Rajasic. Or we are action oriented by nature. Well, that's amply proven by the fact that you didn't act as a dullard tonight. You didn't sit and watch television. You gathered with us to study the Gita. So this is an act of Rajas and of Sattva. It is Rajas trending towards Sattva. Realization, higher knowledge. So we don't know, and it should not concern us how others will break out. We just simply don't know. We can accept Sri Ramakrishna's assurance that at the right time it will happen. That's about all I can say about that. So is that satisfactory?
Yes, Brother Shankara. Thank you.
Anything else from anyone? All right, please read on, dear.
When the dweller in the body has overcome the gunas that cause this body, then he is made free from birth and death, from pain and decay. He becomes immortal. A man is said to have transcended the gunas when he does not hate the light of sattva, or the activity of rajas, or even the delusion of tamas, while these prevail, and yet does not long for them after they have ceased.
Now, notice, I'd like you to read that again. Let's take note of that there should be no aversion or attraction to what the gunas are producing. This is how we free ourselves. When we do not hate their effects or long for their effects when they're not there, then we are freeing ourselves. So please read that again, dear.
A man is said to have transcended the gunas when he does not hate the light of sattva, or the activity of rajas, or even the delusion of tamas, while these prevail, and yet does not long for them after they have ceased. He is like one who sits unconcerned and is not disturbed by the gunas. He knows that they are the doers of all action and never loses this power of discrimination. He rests in the inner calm of the Atman, regarding happiness and suffering as one. Gold, mud, and stone are of equal value to him. The pleasant and the unpleasant are alike. He has true discernment. He pays no attention to praise or to blame. His behavior is the same when he is honored and when he is insulted. When men go to war, he does not regard either side as his enemies or his partisans. He feels no lack of anything. Therefore, he never initiates any action.
Hold on just a moment. Now, when it's said that this state of being arises when one abides in the calm of the Atman, when we know, not surmise or think, but know that we are that witness self, which is a form of samadhi. When we know we are that witness self, all of these things that Swayam just read are true for us. There's no difference between the pleasant and the unpleasant, and so on. Why? Because we do not see them as something happening to us. The you of you is no longer identified with the body, mind, intellect. And so when that is true, you simply see these things that are happening to the body, mind, intellect as a motion picture being played out on the screen of your awareness. Now, of course, this is extremely difficult to achieve for most people. Some achieve it quickly, very few. But most of us, it is literally a decade, 2 decades. This sitting here has been working at this since February of 1973, when Swami Prabhavananda drew me to him. I cannot say that I live in that transcendent state. I have had glimpses of it. So that is, and those glimpses, as any of you who also have had glimpses, know they are transformative. And for those of you who have not yet had glimpses, live in the expectation that if you continue your spiritual practice, you will have those glimpses. And the glimpses become more and more frequent over time. I'm talking about months apart now. I'm not talking about hours apart. That comes, we're told, by those who have achieved. So is all that clear, or is there anything that needs to be resolved?
Brother Shankar, I do have one question.
Yes, dear.
So it says here, towards the end of that paragraph, that he feels no lack of anything, therefore he never initiates any action. But again, I might be, I'm confused, but some of the realized beings also go on to like initiate teaching or,
Yes,
so
Sri
where's,
Ramakrishna says there are 2 kinds of being that, having achieved this state, return. Those who teach from the slender thread of wisdom, and those who teach from the slender thread of ego remains. They teach from wisdom or they teach from love. Sri Ramakrishna, of course, taught from both. But we can look at those who taught previously, and we can see clearly that Adi Shankaracharya taught predominantly from the ego of wisdom, and Narada, the sage Narada, taught primarily from the yoga or the ego of love. So, yes, there are some who initiate action. Others, and Sri Ramakrishna, of course, himself was one. I said he taught from both perspectives. But the most realized souls simply accept what comes to them as long as they remain embodied. And again, this is very difficult because it may not be pleasant what comes to them. They may have some incident happen to them that causes significant suffering. And there may be a long period of recovery from such an incident.
I think, if I remember correctly, was it Saint John of the Cross who suffered
Terribly,
immensely?
terribly, yes. He was tormented, tortured by his fellow monks because he wouldn't relent in his desire to transform the monastic order to which they all belonged. And they resisted very physically and horribly. They beat him nearly to death. Yes, St. John of the Cross. He suffered horribly. Finally, the Divine Mother himself came to her and said, "It's time for you to escape." And escape he did. So
Thank you.
it didn't go on forever. Thank you, dear. Anything else from anyone? Okay, please read on.
He who worships me with unfaltering love transcends these gunas. He becomes fit to reach union with Brahman. For I am the Brahman within this body, life immortal that shall not perish. I am the truth and the joy forever. And that's the end of that chapter on the three gunas.
So Sri Krishna says that as he is speaking to us, he's not speaking as a human being, although he is embodied, of course. He's speaking to us as Brahman or the Atman. He's speaking to us as Saguna Brahman or Saguna Atman, that is Brahman with attributes. Krishna was Brahman with attributes. He was the Atman with attributes. He speaks of himself in that way from time to time in the Gita. Now, this is mysterious to us. We don't understand how both things can be true at once. And because it's not the infinite, the cosmic mind and its actions cannot be understood by the finite mind. So we have to be content with that. We're not going to understand in the cognitive sense of understanding. We will understand when we turn our attention within and begin to listen to the voice of silence, as it is said by all the sages. The The language of God, as Meister Eckhart said, is silence. All else is a poor translation. All language is a poor translation. So when we learn to listen to that voice of silence within us, then we understand, but not in an intellectual sense. We understand in a heartfelt sense what it is that we are and what is being offered to us. Any thoughts or comments or questions from anyone else about that? All right, dear, please go on to chapter 15.
Chapter 15, Devotion to the Supreme Spirit. Shri Krishna. There is a fig tree in ancient story. The giant Ashwatha, the everlasting, rooted in heaven, its branches earthward. Each of its leaves is a song of the Vedas, and he who knows it knows all the Vedas. Downward and upward, its branches bending are fed by the gunas. The buds it puts forth are the things of the senses. Roots it has also, reaching downward into this world, the root of man's action. And this is all being said by Sri Krishna.
Yes.
What its form is, its end and beginning, its very nature can never be known here. Therefore, a man should contemplate Brahman until he has sharpened the axe of his non-attachment. With this axe, he must cut through the firmly rooted Ashwatha tree. Then he must try to realize that state from which there is no return to future births.
Okay, hold it just there. As you can see, this Ashwatha tree is one huge metaphor for all of existence. All that we can know or experience is produced by this metaphorical tree, this Ashwatha. So, why does Sri Krishna give it to us in this form? Well, because this is the understanding from here. Different kinds of minds require different kinds of information in order to get some grasp of what is meant by the metaphysical, the mystical. So this is another way of Sri Krishna saying this. It isn't that Arjuna needs this so much, although Arjuna, of course, is listening very attentively. But it is for that kind of mind that grasps this kind of metaphor. Is that clear? Is there anything unclear about that? Okay, go back and read the very beginning of the description of the Ashwatha tree, if you would, please.
Sure. Shri Krishna. There is a fig tree in ancient story, the giant Ashwatha, the everlasting. Rooted in heaven, its branches earthward. Each of its leaves is a song of the Vedas.
Each of its leaves is a song of the Vedas. My God, how many songs are in the Vedas? So these are the leaves. Each of its leaves is a song of the Vedas. This is metaphor. The Vedas are emblemized, are made concrete. The songs of the Vedas are made concrete. Rather than being ephemeral as a song is ephemeral, we sing a song, it comes, it goes. But these leaves, they last forever. So we can always hear the songs of the Vedas. So please read on.
Each of its leaves is a song of the Vedas, and he who knows it knows all the Vedas. So when he says he who knows it, so he who knows the tree,
the full tree, all the leaves of the tree.
Downward and upward, its branches bending are fed by the gunas. The bud it puts forth are the things of the senses.
The bud.
Buds. It puts forth are the things.
Spell the word, please.
Buds.
Yeah, the buds.
Buds.
The buds it puts forth are the things of the senses. Created by the gunas are all the things of the senses. So the buds that become the figs that we eat. A bud becomes a flower. The flower becomes a fig. So these are the things of the senses. So its buds are the things of the senses. Please read on.
Roots it has also reaching downward into this world. The roots of man's action. So
we have not only our experience, but our action are caused by this tree.
So in the beginning it said rooted in heaven, and then branches are earthward, and now it's saying roots it has also reaching downward into this world.
Yes, this is a very mysterious tree, isn't it? It's on both sides, leaves throughout. This is not a there's no real tree of this kind. This is a complex, and it's meant to challenge the intellect of those people who like complex metaphors, problems to solve. This is how it's understood from here. As such, it is not meant for each of us to try to tackle this. This is a good one for jnanis. This is a good one for those who are in the advanced stages of Raja Yoga.
Roots it has also reaching downward into this world, the roots of man's action. What its form is, its end and beginning, its very nature can never be known here. Therefore, a man should contemplate Brahman until he has sharpened the axe of his non-attachment. With this axe, he must cut through the firmly rooted Ashwatha tree.
Notice non-attachment. Non-attachment. This is another word for renunciation. That is to say, you're not attached to any experience or any sensation of the senses. You're not averse to any of them. You're simply not attached. Sharpen the axe of your non-attachment. And when you have this axe sharpened, you can cut through the roots of the tree so that the tree no longer lives for you. So please read those lines again, Swayam.
Yes, brother. And once I finish reading, if you could little bit expand on this, how to contemplate Brahman, because that seems to be the way he's suggesting to sharpen the axe of
Yes.
non-attachment.
Okay, please read them.
Therefore, a man should contemplate Brahman until he has sharpened the axe of his non-attachment. With this axe, he must cut through the firmly rooted Ashwatha tree. Then he must try to realize that state from which there is no return to future births. Let him take refuge in that primal being from whom all this seeming activity streams forth forever.
So this is a description of Brahman. Brahman is that from which all streams forth forever. It is the inherent, we're told, energy of Brahman that causes Maya to arise, Maya and the gunas. And so what does it mean, as you asked, to contemplate Brahman? Well, the classical answer to this, and certainly it's represented in the teachings of Sri Ramakrishna, is said in the simple phrase, neti neti. Not this, not that. What is Brahman? Brahman cannot be anything. If we understand the meaning of the word Brahman, Brahman cannot be anything that is not eternal, infinite, and changeless. Now, everything within the world of experience is finite, time-bound, and constantly changing. So that cannot be Brahman. It is the effect caused by the presence of Brahman, from whom it all streams forth. But it is not Brahman itself. And when we have sharpened the axe of non-attachment by contemplating Brahman, by not being attached to any of those things that arise and pass away, then we can pass beyond into that state where we're not reborn. Is that clear?
Very clear, and it was a very good revision. So, what are the three main sort of characteristics, if you will, may not be the right word for Brahman? Is indivisible,
Eternal.
eternal, and one more?
Eternal, infinite, and changeless.
Changeless.
Eternal, infinite, and changeless.
Changeless.
Now, nothing within time, space, and causation, by definition, meets that test. It's all finite, time-bound, and constantly changing. Everything that we know, everything that we experience, except that when we turn within, we discover this witness Atman that meets that test of being infinite, eternal, and changeless. And when we change our identification from that which is changing, time-bound, finite, to that which is eternal, infinite, changeless, when we truly change our identification by experiencing it, not by thinking about it, not by surmising that must be the truth, or believing in the truth told us by someone else. And as I say, you can work at this for decades. You get glimpses. You get hints and allegations, as it is said in the film Casablanca. You get hints and allegations. And that's what encourages you to press on. Does that get it, Soya?
It does. Thank you, Brother Shankara.
Good. Anything else from anyone? Please speak up if there's anything that you would like to say. Anything you'd like to add? All right, dear, please go ahead.
When men have thrown off their ignorance, they are free from pride and delusion. They have conquered the evil of worldly attachment. They live in constant union with the Atman. All craving has left them. They are no longer at the mercy of opposing sense reactions. Thus, they reach that state which is beyond all change. This is my infinite being. Shall the sun lend it any light, or the moon, or fire? For it shines self-luminous always, and he who attains me will never be reborn. Part of myself is the God within every creature, keeps that nature eternal, yet seems to be separate. Putting on mind and senses five, the garment made of Prakriti. When the Lord puts on a body or casts it from him, he enters or departs, taking the mind and senses away with him, as the wind steals perfume out of the flowers. I'm just going to read this again, Brother Shankara.
Please do.
When the Lord puts on a body or casts it from him, he enters or departs, taking the mind and senses away with him, as the wind steals perfume out of the flowers. Watching over the ear and the eye, and presiding there behind touch and taste and smell, he is also within the mind. He enjoys and suffers the things of the senses. Dwelling in flesh, or departing, or one with the gunas, knowing their moods and motions, he is invisible always to the ignorant, but his sages see him with the eye of wisdom. Yogis who have gained tranquility through the practice of spiritual disciplines behold him in their own consciousness. But those who lack tranquility and discernment will not find him, even though they may try hard to do so. The light that lives in the sun, lighting all the world, the light of the moon, the light that is in fire, know that light to be mine. My energy enters the earth, sustaining all that lives. I become
This energy, this is the energy of Brahman. It is self-luminous, beyond beginning, never ending, eternal. And so we mustn't think this is going to that the universe created by this Brahman is going to arise and pass away. It may become more active or more dormant. These are called the day of Brahma, the active part, and the night of Brahma, when it's dormant or potential. But it's always there. It's always there. It does not arise and pass away. The things it generates arise and pass away. But it itself is eternal, and beyond its activities, it is infinite, changeless, and timeless. Anything else from anyone about any?
Brother Shankara,
Yes, dear.
this first paragraph just like catches my attention or my fancy or whatever. So it's basically the Lord puts on the body or casts it from him. He enters and departs, taking the mind and senses away with him, as the wind steals perfume out of the flower. So in a way, this might answer how those born in Rajas will be reborn and Tamas reborn. When the Lord decides that, okay, I'm done with this cycle of Rajas, I'll go, elsewhere. That's that?
Precisely, dear. This is exactly what Sri Ramakrishna says. You will move from one state to another at exactly the right time. So this is why we should never look with anything but love on anyone who doesn't seem to be pursuing a spiritual life. And we mustn't try to change them or think that there's something that they need to be doing. No. They will spontaneously start down the path of spiritual realization at exactly the right moment. Sri Ramakrishna underlines and underlines this. So we must, it isn't that we must, but it is beneficial or auspicious for us to look on all beings as the divine being, simply not awakened to itself yet. And so we can feel great gratitude that we have been given this grace. The three graces: human birth, first grace, that's the first grace. Human, you need to be human in order to do this. Second grace, the desire for liberation, mumukshutva, the desire to understand and be free of limitation. And the third grace is a qualified teacher. So here we have the qualified teacher as Sri Krishna himself. Of course, the qualified teacher appears to us as the Swamis of the Ramakrishna order and other great teachers of the world now and in times past, and they'll always be coming. So this is how we can abide in this spirit. Yeah, I really like those verses too, those lines too. It's the Lord that puts on the body and casts it aside.
That where the statement where it says, we all dance by the mother's will alone, that when you really contemplate that, it really forces you out of being able to judge anybody or anything or look at them or their actions as negative in your eyes. Because even when you're beating yourself up, you have to realize that you dance by the mother's will. Mm-hmm. And you really, if you really contemplate it, it'll take you into not being the doer.
Very well said, Bhagavananda. Very nicely put, very articulate. Yes, indeed, all of that is true. And it leaves us free from having to judge the world. We don't have to judge the world. Of course, we cannot condone actions that harm others. We cannot condone them. So we have laws that control these things. And these laws are constantly being revised as people, in their cleverness, become more and more artful at evading the laws that have already been made. But it needn't concern us in any way. Let the law take care of itself. Let the lawful authorities take care of those who contravene the law, who break the law. And it frees us. It's a great freedom not to have to judge others or ourselves. You said beating yourself up. Oh, we do that from time to time. But then if we look at it with the idea, with the discriminating eye, we have a sense of comedy. Oh, there I did it again. I beat myself up again. To what end? It's just another distraction. So well said, Bhagavan.
There's something else to it also. Swami Sarvapriyananda, when he was here, and I think he might have been quoting Sri Ramakrishna, but he was, and I think part of it was his own thing, but he said, like in the beginning, people are hell, but at the end, that you'll see them as a seething mass of consciousness, all in their own way, working their way towards the realization. And
oh, wow, what a great phrase. A seething mass of consciousness.
yeah.
Yes, indeed. Each of us is indeed a seething mass of consciousness.
And, so when you see all the chaos and the riots or whatever, if you look at it through that, it's like you just see all the Maya and the suffering and whatever working its way out, pushing those people towards the goal.
Yep. Precisely. Well said, as always.
And not always.
Well, often enough. Anything else from anyone? Okay, please read on, dear.
My energy enters the earth, sustaining all that lives. I become the moon, given of water and sap to feed the plants and the trees. Flame of life in all, I consume the many foods, turning them into strength that upholds the body. I am in all hearts. I give and take away, knowledge and memory. I am all that the Vedas tell. I am the teacher, the knower of Vedanta. There are two kinds of personality in this world, the mortal and the immortal. The personality of all creatures is mortal. The personality of God is said to be immortal. It is the same forever. But there is one other than these, the impersonal being who is called the Supreme Atman. He is the unchanging Lord who pervades and supports the three worlds. And since I, the Atman, transcend the mortal and even the immortal, I am known in this world and in the Vedas as the supreme reality. He who is free from delusion and knows me as the supreme reality and knows all that can be known. Therefore, he adores me with his whole heart. This is the most sacred of all truths I have taught you. He who has realized it becomes truly wise. The purpose of his life is fulfilled. And that's the end of the chapter.
So read those last lines again.
There are two kinds of personality in this world, the mortal and the immortal. The personality of all creatures is mortal. The personality of God is said to be immortal.
So, but we contain both. We as embodied beings contain both of those things. Somehow, the body is within the soul. The soul is not in the body. The body is in the soul. It is a creation of the soul. So this is what's being pointed to. Please go on.
The personality of God is said to be immortal. It is the same forever. But there is one other than these, the impersonal being, who is called the Supreme Atman.
Or Brahman.
Brahm. He is the unchanging Lord who pervades and supports the three worlds. And since I, the Atman, transcend the mortal and even the immortal, I am known in this world and in the Vedas as the supreme reality. I have a quick question here, Brother Shankara.
Yes, dear.
So it says the personality of God is said to be immortal, but then Brahman is beyond that, impersonal being. So God is immortal, the personality, but then the personality changes. Is that the different avatars?
That's a way to think about it. Uh, it's very difficult to understand these things intellectually. This is why we need to take them into our contemplation, concentration, and meditation, and hear them with the voice of silence. So read those lines again, and I'll do my best.
Okay. There are two kinds of personality in this world, the mortal and the immortal. The personality of all creatures is mortal.
With all creatures,
Yes, is
all embodied beings,
hmm.
it is mortal. That is to say, it arises and passes away. It's born and it dies. That part of it is born and dies.
The personality of God is said to be immortal.
Immortal.
It is the same forever.
Yes, it does not arise and pass away. It is never born, it never dies. It is eternal, and it does not pass away. This is the great mystery that confronts us. We are both those things at once. Please read on.
But there is one other than these, the impersonal being who is called the Supreme Atman. He is the unchanging Lord who pervades and supports the three worlds. And since I, the Atman, transcend the mortal and even the immortal, I am known in this world and in the Vedas as the supreme reality. He who is free from delusion and knows me as the supreme reality knows all that can be known. Therefore, he adores me with his whole heart. This is the most sacred of all the truths I have taught you. He who has realized it becomes truly wise. The purpose of his life is fulfilled.
Notice the purpose of his life is fulfilled. So if any of us wants to know what is the purpose of this life, there it is, to become what Sri Krishna just described. And of course, this is the purpose. The purpose of life then becomes the purpose of our spiritual practices. The danger is that we think we must do this. There's no must. You're harking back to Bhagavapada and talking about beating oneself up. You do not have to do this. You are invited to do this. The divine never insists or forces or compels. The gunas and your karma, the karma of the embodied being, there may be compulsion, there may be pain and suffering, there may be joy as a result of the mental impressions or gunas or samskaras as well. But none of that has anything to do with your identity with that supreme being, that supreme reality that pervades the entire world and therefore gives rise to you and everything you know and all of us and this very moment. So is all of that clear? Anything at all that needs clarification? All right, dear.
So, Brother Shankar,
Yes, dear.
that was the end of that chapter, and I'm wondering there are only 3 minutes left.
Yeah,
And
well, let's just call it quits there.
Yeah, I read a beautiful description of the Gita in this book, Spiritual Heritage of India by Swami
Ah,
Prabhavananda. And I was
yeah,
wondering if I can just read 3 or 4 lines because it's
please, please,
Janmashtami.
please. By the way, any of you who have not read that book and are interested in what the spiritual heritage of India and its magnitude, this is a description of Sanatana Dharma. This is the spiritual heritage of India is the Sanatana Dharma. And so Sri Swami Prabhavananda wrote this wonderful book. And Swami is going to read us a few lines.
So this is from chapter 5 of this book, which is the Bhagavad Gita. And this is a small. So what he says is that there is a passage from the invocation which is prefixed to the poem that expresses the same idea thus. I mean, I'm leaving out the first paragraph. So I think it's a invocation before the Gita begins. There are some verses.
Oh,
And
yes.
this next 4 lines are from one of those invocations.
Uh-huh.
So what he says is that all the Upanishads are the cows. The son of the cowherd, Krishna, is the milker. Partha or Arjuna is the calf. Men of purified intellect are the drinkers. And the supreme nectar, known as Gita, is the milk.
This is why oftentimes the Gita is referred to by commentators as the cream of the Upanishads. the cream of the Upanishads. And Swami Prabhavananda referred to it in that way. So we'll let it go now for this evening. Thank you all for coming. This is so sustaining. This is exactly what is meant by congregation, gathering together. There's a great undercurrent of unity and consciousness that flows through these gatherings. And for this at least, and I'm sure for you too, otherwise why would you return? It's very energizing and sustaining. So thank you all for coming. Thank you all for what you said and what you didn't say, even though you weren't speaking aloud. Your heart was speaking, and we felt it. So we'll sign off as we always do by saying, Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai. Durga, Durga, Durga. May we be safe. May we be healthy. May we be cheerful. May we have peace of mind. And may we go forward, secure in the knowledge that we are in the loving and protective embrace of the Divine Being as our Mother and Father. May you all be well and in bright spirits until Saturday, when we'll study How to Know God, Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. And then on Sunday, the talk is titled, You Touch Me, and there will be a poem in tomorrow's e-newsletter that will give you a glimpse of what that means. So, and that's what we'll talk about on Sunday. You, the Divine Being, touch me, the Divine Being, and we dance together. So, and anything else? Any last thought or comment or question from anyone? All right, good night, everyone.